She is the political director for the National Libertarian Party, the party of principle. You hear me preach about it on Facebook. You hear me preach about it on the show. And please welcome Carla Howell. Carla, are you there? Can you hear us?
You're welcome. Great to be on.
Carla, you represent the fine, upstanding Libertarian Party. And
yes.
May I first and foremost say thank you to all the hard work that the party continues to do on a regular daily basis, and hopefully we will gain ground, in the next midterm and next election. But you guys do a fantastic job.
Thank you, and the thanks are due to all of our staff, our Libertarian National Committee, our members, our donors, our affiliates, our candidates, our volunteers and activists. We've got so many people who make it happen, and it's really a grassroots effort.
Yes, it is a grassroots. That's another great word too that we use here on the show as well. So, Carla, we got this this mess that's I think has been brewing for some time. With Fourth Amendment rights, dare I say, I think. Did it start prior to the Patriot Act? I mean, I really think the Patriot Act might have been the catalyst start to this whole rolling ball of disaster.
The Patriot, some would say it went back 30 years to the NSA's original formation, the FISA Accords formation, both of which predate the Patriot Act. It's been growing over the years. Now, the Patriot Act and NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, were both big steps forward. They've both been, renewed and amended, and every year or two there's some major bills and votes to sustain or expand the powers of the huge spy apparatus of the United States in one form or another, if not in many forms. So it's been a gradual process, but Patriot Act was a big jump. NDAA was a big jump. There's been a number of others, but those are the notable ones in the last 10, 15 years.
And the amount of money they pour into these programs, and of course, the NDAA specifically, just full of a lot of hidden agendas constantly.
Well, there's probably nothing that's got more hidden agendas than a spy agency.
Right.
And I don't think even those of us who follow this more closely than others could possibly dream all of what's being hidden from us. I mean, a lot of us knew that emails were being tapped, that certain legislation gave, that they kept sort of breaking down the Fourth Amendment by, using these terrorism as an excuse, provisions, secret courts. Under this circumstance, the president could order this, or, if it's a foreign person, they just kept coming up with excuses for expanding and expanding and expanding the surveillance state till they got to a point where they were so blatantly violating the Fourth Amendment, where they literally have the power to go in and listen to any email, phone conversation, read any email, snoop on any Skype conversation or chat session. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And it's not just the Internet. It's also, cameras all over the place, the TSA, the stop and frisk, cops putting their hands in the pockets of black guys who meet a certain profile description. There's lots of ways in which the Fourth Amendment has been beaten down by lawmakers in Washington, D.C. And the Libertarian Party, for 42 years, almost 43 now, has been a outspoken advocate for restoring the Fourth Amendment, complete adherence to the Fourth Amendment. There's a blog on our website, lp.org, that gives a sampling of our candidates over the years, starting with our presidential candidates in the 70s up until Gary Johnson last year, as well as a number of our state and House of Representatives candidates in 2012, and many that are lining up for 2014. They are across the board strong advocates for the Fourth Amendment. A lot of the state candidates want to do things like nullification, which did pass. NDAA was nullified by the legislature in Virginia. There's a whole bunch of states that are taking this up, and Libertarian candidates stand ready to support legislation, if not drive legislation like that.
Right, and truly you can see a lot of that just on social media. Libertarian Party doing a great job there as well, putting the word out across social media, Twitter, Facebook, things like that. I guess a question / open up a discussion on this here. I mention this all the time on the show when we talk about these blatant violations of not only the Fourth Amendment, Carla, but a lot of the other amendments. And as a citizen, as an American citizen, to sit back and wonder how does Congress allow this to get this bad? I mean, you can't help but wonder. I mean, we know some of the problems are, there should be some term limits. There's career politicians in office. But I mean, it almost looks like the people that are holding the congressional seats are un-American when they allow it to get this far. This is too far. What is going on in Congress that they're just not taking care of our interests? It's almost like that they're not one of us.
Well, sadly, big government attracts people who want power, money, stature, as opposed to who want to do the right thing for Americans. There's way too much money in government. Mm-hmm. And just in spy agencies alone, they're spending $75 billion a year on 17 or 18 separate spy agencies. How on earth do you need 17 or 18 different spy agencies? And this surveillance empire has grown dramatically since around the time the Patriot Act was passed, after 9/11. And they have added millions of dollars of square footage in the Washington, D.C. area, as well as expanding, various offices around the country and presumably around the world. So there's so much money in it. There's so much money. And whenever you start committing money and creating bureaucracies, it's very difficult to get rid of them. Your only chance of getting rid of them is to vote Libertarian. And that's why we say, you want to change, you got to vote Libertarian. You got to vote for the people who are running for office to get rid of this stuff, not to expand their power, stature, and wealth, but to remove power from Washington, D.C., and give the money back to the people. As long as there's piles and piles of money coming into this city, there's nothing we're going to be able to do to stop them. We have to vote for the people who will take down, dramatically cut spending, pink slip a lot of these bureaucracies, dismantle them and remove them. It's not going to change any other way.
Right, and I agree with that. We're on the phone with Carla Howell. She's the political director for the Libertarian Party. And we're talking about the Fourth Amendment and how it's been destroyed. Phone number 866-417-4359. Carla, I've said before that I think one of the problems is, come election time, and I came up with this theory because I went out into the world, so to speak, into my local world here, and I experienced it for myself. I went to some rallies and spoke to Libertarian candidates and some other independent candidates at rallies where all parties were represented, and they were like public open forums, nothing structured, because as we know, you can't get into a structured debate or rally at all if you're not Democrat or Republican. But so it has come to my own understanding that I go out to these rallies, I speak to these candidates, and the Libertarian Party candidate will talk to you forever about how he wants to correct things, get things done. They have no bones about spending time with you, talking about America and the Constitution. And I don't think enough people go out and do that. I think on Election Day, my theory is that the sheep will just go into the booth and they just vote, they toe the party line. Well, he's been in there. No one's looking at what does my candidate do for me, or what has my candidate not done for me. I think there's some sort of disconnect. You walk into the booth, and you're walking in there without all the knowledge that you should have.
I think that's true, and the reason that this happens, I think, is not just people are apathetic or lazy, as they're often accused of being. And you can argue that that's true, but I really think the bigger problem, having run for office, run ballot initiatives, worked on many campaigns, dealt with the media extensively. I've been in a lot of debates and interviews. And the whole media empire, if you will, is, as they say, the fourth estate. It's joined at the hip with big government. Mm-hmm. And so, they will exclude third-party candidates from debates, even if the Democrats and Republicans are willing to have them in the debate. This is what happened to me in one of the debates I was actually invited to by a university in Massachusetts when I ran for governor against Mitt Romney and the Democrat Shannon O'Brien. And instead of the media turned around and said, no, we only want the Democrat and Republican, and if you don't kick out the third parties, we're not going to cover the debate. We're pulling all our coverage of it. They threatened the university to reverse their invitation and remove myself and a Green candidate from the debates who had been invited by that university.
Right.
So this is the media controlling elections. And in the same vein, they control a lot of what people know and don't know. They pick what's a story or not a story.
Right.
And the whole presentation of the news is dramatically slanted and just misses the boat almost completely on what's really going on in terms of the money incentive that's driving politics. And under the guise of do good for the world and this and that and stop terrorists, whatever excuse they're using du jour, what they're covering up is just a vast empire of special interests sucking the life out of the American economy and specifically out of the pocketbooks of American workers and taxpayers.
Right.
It's just one grand legalized theft scheme in a sense. And so, people, and part of this power and controls what people know because they control the media. So people, they're busy, they're trying to, they're paying taxes, they're trying to support their families. Most people are very busy, and they don't have time to sit around and digest every bit of the news or go researching. And what we have to do is keep encouraging them to look to alternative media, such as yourself, go to alternatives in the political system. And we say the Libertarian Party is the only political party in America that's dedicated to shrinking government, to restoring every amendment of the Constitution, all of the Bill of Rights, and shrinking government specifically, and we're not fooling around. And this is what we need to turn things around. So we need to get the word out to people to vote Libertarian. And at this point today, people are so discouraged. Their approval ratings for Democrats, Republicans, Congress, the president are all pretty much in the toilet. And yet they still get convinced that there's no alternative. And the reason they do is because our candidates get excluded from debates. The media pretends they're not there. They're very dismissive. Instead of doing what they have the power to do, which is inform people that there is a choice and let people know. Now, we've got a candidate in Virginia here, Rob Sarvis, running for governor, and he's actually getting more publicity than usual. He's actually up to 9.5% or 10% in the polls. They're saying they're not going to let him in the debates, but we're not sure if that could change now, especially because he's at 10%, which they had said was their threshold. And we'll see what they actually do. The right thing to do is unquestionably to have him in the debate. But if you got a candidate on the ballot, especially in these states where it's hard to get on the ballot. Virginia Libertarians had to collect 10,000 ballot signatures to get them on the ballot with difficult requirements. 400 of those signatures had to come from each of the congressional districts in the state. That's a very difficult ballot drive. We've got a well-spoken candidate in Rob Sarvis. People need to hear him. They need to know about his choice. So you've got a Democrat and Republican spending millions of dollars just bashing each other, very, very negative on relatively picayune issues. They're not really talking about any issues of substance that affect people's lives. And Rob Sarvis is. Rob Sarvis needs to be in the debate. Same with Ken Kaplan running for governor of New Jersey, our Libertarian for governor there.
Right.
I don't know what the status is of debates in that state, but you get a candidate on the ballot, in most cases they should be in the debate. It's not like, we watched Republican primaries with 9, 15 candidates standing up there on stage, and everybody learned a lot in those debates. You certainly can.
Right.
Their excuses, there's too many. Are you kidding me? two, like more than two is too many, when they had 9 or 10 Republicans on stage debating each other and it worked just fine.
Right.
That's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's just a manipulation by the media. It's one of many, but it's one of the primary ways in which people end up with the impression that, oh, gee, there's only two, I have to choose, and I really hate, and if they're Republican-leaning, they're listening to right-wing radio and hearing Obama get bashed. If they're left-leaning, they're listening to liberal media and they're hearing Republicans get bashed. And they're just convinced to hate the other side. And this is just a way of distracting people from what's really going on and what their real choices are.
Right. And Carla, we have a question from the table. Stan, question for Carla?
Yes, hi, Carla. This is Stan, and I have a question for you. One,
Sure.
I see every single year the tax form 1040 comes back and says, do you want $5 to go to the presidential campaign fund? Now, I had previously thought that the fund was split up between Republicans and Democrats, but listening to you, now realizing that it should be split up between anybody running for president. Does the Libertarian Party get any of the proceeds from the donations?
Not the party per se, but sometimes candidates do. Governor Gary Johnson got a small amount that he had qualified for, and I think it came somewhere in the ballpark of $500,000, $800,000. And you compare that to the Democrats and Republicans who have their conventions funded. They're getting many, many, many millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars. I consider that whole racket of the government funding campaigns to be something to be avoided. I recommend never check that. It's going to end up just going to bad places that make things worse. You don't want the government ever funding campaigns. Some say, well, it makes it more equal. Well, it doesn't, because the lawmakers are the ones who set the rules, and you can be sure they're going to protect their incumbency. So keep the money, and don't designate, even though it's not something that adds to your tax return, never check that box, never give them more money, and just look for alternatives. Look for alternative media to learn what's going on. Go on the website, go to lp.org, learn about the Libertarian Party and the choices that you have on the ballot with Libertarians. If you want to help, if you want to volunteer, donate, get involved, help us move this forward and make it bigger, please do.
Carla, this is Tony. I got a really quick question for you, too. How do we convince our local media to cover your party more than the Republican and the Democratic parties?
That's a good question, and it's sort of the $15 trillion question, if you will. It's something a lot of people are trying to do and have been trying to do for many years. I'd say the first thing you want to do, obviously, you're a media outlet, and the more you inform people and contrast what the truth that you're able to provide, the information you're able to provide that they're not getting from the mainstream media, is a help, because it says, look, you can't trust these guys to tell you even a fraction of what you really need to know. So you're doing that just by getting the word out, and that's very important. The other thing is, I recommend that people go to lp.org, get plugged in, get on our email list. I also recommend learning about any ballot initiatives going on in your state, especially if they're ones that shrink government. And only certain states have those. And on the East Coast, there's only a couple of states that do. Excuse me, including Massachusetts, where I headed several initiatives. But they're important, and the ballot initiatives have driven a lot of policy in this country, especially now with the war on drugs, the war on marijuana. If not for ballot initiatives, we'd probably be where we were 15 years ago, with drug czars running around and, federal government stomping on any attempts to repeal the failed drug prohibition or marijuana prohibition. But because of ballot initiatives, they've made it, medical marijuana has become legal in a number of states, and the legislators followed suit. Now there's about 17 or 18 states where medical marijuana is legal or partially legal. 2 states where recreational marijuana is legal. So the ballot initiatives are actually very important. We did several in Massachusetts. 2 to end the income tax, 1 to roll the sales tax back. Again, it's not a tool that's available in every state, but it's available in about 15 states where it's viable, where you can actually get something on the ballot. And they are often opinion leaders. They can push policy nationwide. So that's something to keep your eye on and to keep people informed about. Ballot initiatives and campaigns, that's where the real action is. That's where we can change things. That's where we can present a real challenge to the big government status quo. We always have to be looking at how we vote. So the bottom line is vote, make sure you go to the polls, know who's on the ballot or what ballot initiatives are on the ballot before you go, figure out which ones will shrink government, and everything else, don't dare vote for it. If there's only a Democrat and Republican on the ballot, blank the ballot or write in a candidate, a Libertarian candidate, a small government candidate for yourself. But do vote, but never vote for big government. What that does is it says, we're voting, we're ready to kick out the bum, bring in people who do what we want. And if we haven't grown big enough yet that there's somebody on the ballot for every office that we want to vote for, we're just going to write in the candidate or blanket. But we're not going to settle for this manipulation that says you have to vote Democrat or Republican. You have to, choose to, shoot yourself or drink the poison or whatever. No, you don't have to accept that choice. You can blank the ballot, and that's very powerful, even though people say, oh, my vote won't count. Well, it actually will, because if 10,000 people turn out to an election and the winner got 2,000 and the loser got 1,000, meaning 7,000 people actually showed up at the polls but didn't vote for either candidate, that says when the right candidate comes along, they're going to have a huge voting block of people who actually show up to vote.
Right.
So this is actually very powerful. So I think it's very important that we get people to realize their vote really does matter.
Right. And Carla, before we go to break and let you go, that was a great wrap. I was going to give you some time to wrap. You wrapped a lot of great information in there. And one more time before you go, you want to give out the websites and contact information for Libertarian Party?
Sure. It's lp.org. You can click to our Facebook page from the homepage. We'd love to have you come and visit our website.
And obviously, as everyone knows who listens to the show, we're always linking it on us. Carla, I can't thank you enough for coming in and inspiring us and giving us some information about LP and talking about the Fourth Amendment. And I know a lot of us will be at the polls for the LP next year.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too, Carla. Enjoy your weekend.